we were talking a lot about poetry, right? We looked at those two poems, Sing to Me and The Climb, and we learned that oftentimes, we were focused a little bit more on like elements of poetry, and then we got into the theme, but we've learned that oftentimes when we reread a poem, right, for the second, third, fourth, even fifth time, we might dig a little deeper and understand more about our poet or our writer and more about the meaning of the poem. So this week we're going to pick up right where we left off. We're going to continue focusing on poetry and digging a little deeper. So if you look here, this says determining the theme of a poem. So our goal is, as you can see here, to use details in a poem to determine its theme to help us develop an understanding of the poet's ideas. So I'm going to read this paragraph. I want you guys just to follow along. On one level, a poem may share a poet's thoughts and feelings about a simple experience. On another level, the poet's words suggest a deeper meaning or a theme of the poem. A poet usually won't state the theme. Instead, you must connect the poem's details to a message about life and how to live it. So boys and girls, this paragraph is telling me that oftentimes in poetry, the theme is not clearly stated, and we know that. We know that's the same with even literature or fiction stories that we read. But we have to really dig deep into this poem so that we can connect with the details, and we can also put those pieces together to figure out that real message about life and how to live it. Going on to this next paragraph, to discover the theme of a poem, think about what it mostly tells about and the ideas shared by the poet. Then dig deeper. Ask yourself, how do details in the poem connect to a larger life lesson? You can see this graphic organizer over here. I know I've got a split screen running here. So this is a graphic organizer we're going to use throughout this week. You can see it's divided into two sections. So these two boxes right here are focused on the details. So going straight down, the what is the poem mostly about and what thoughts or feelings are shared, that you're going to gather from the details in a poem. This section over here, this is where you've really got to do some inferring, meaning digging deeper and putting together your background knowledge along with what you've read. I know we've talked about what it means to make an inference before. So in this section, we're focused on more of like that bigger, broader picture of in life or the life lesson. So we're going to talk this through to help us determine the theme of the poem. So Mrs. Body is going to go through and I'm going to read this poem to you. It's titled A Fork in the Road. After I read this poem, we're going to go through and we are going to complete this graphic organizer together. So some of you have heard this saying before, like, oh, we got to the fork in the road. There's a fork in the road. Which way are we going to go? Right? And you can see two different paths here. So two different options. So that's kind of my background knowledge. I typically activate my background knowledge before I read a poem and think like, what do I know about this? Have I ever heard anything? Or I look at the picture if there's one included and try to make some kind of meaning out of this. So let's start reading. I see one stanza here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. The road down which to go, I simply do not know. How do I make up my mind when I know not what I'll find? So right away, I know that when I read it the first time, you were probably focused still on those elements of poetry, and you said, oh, there's some rhyming words there. Know and go and mind and find. And there's even a little bit of rhythm there. There's it kind of like flows, almost like a song. So now I'm going to read it one more time. And now that we've gotten past the elements of poetry, I want you to think about what this poem is mostly about. So let's read it again. The road down which to go, I simply do not know. How do I make up my mind when I know not what I'll find? Now we're going to go over here. So what is this poem mostly about? Well, in my opinion, and this might be a little bit different than yours, but I think that the speaker can't decide which road to take. So that's my own thinking right there. That's like from the details in the poem. Now, let's convert that or think about more of a life lesson. So I actually am going to read this again. The road down which to go, I simply do not know. How do I make up my mind when I know not what I'll find? So really, this could apply to several different things. But what comes to my mind is like a major life decision that our speaker is being faced with. This could be many things. It could be choosing a job. It could be a major like move getting ready to happen. Am I going to live here or should I live here? I don't know because I don't know what it's going to be like. These are both unknown areas. It could be about deciding like I said, which career to take. Am I going to be this when I grow up or do I want to be this? Well, I don't really know enough about each of those career choices. So in life, the life lesson, I think that if we were going to like kind of cover all of that, I might say something like the speaker can't make a decision, can't make a major life decision. So there's something going on in our speaker's life, and he or she is having trouble deciding which route to take. Now we go down here to this third box. What thoughts or feelings are shared? Well, when I read that, I can determine that our speaker feels unsure. It's not really like a feeling of happiness or sadness, but more of like uncertainty. So we could say unsure or uncertain. I think those are both really good words to describe our speaker's feelings. So if I were going to put those pieces together, boys and girls, to help me determine the theme, the major life lesson that our poet wants you to take away, is that it is okay to feel unsure or uncertain when making a major life decision. Now I could even add something about this last line here, when I know not what I'll find. So it is okay to feel unsure or uncertain when making a major life decision because we may not always know the outcome. Now, again, theme, just to kind of remind ourselves, this is our end goal to help us determine the theme of a poem. Theme is something that can apply to more than one text. So what I want you guys to do now on your own, I'm going to scroll down here, and I want you to look. Here is a poem, and it is titled Roads. It's kind of another topic, let's say, as we move through the week. You might see a lot of poems written about different roads. So you guys are going to read this on your own, and you're going to go through the same process that Mrs. Body just did, focusing on the details in the poem, what it was about, and then thinking about what that means as far as a life lesson, then thinking about what thoughts or feelings did your speaker encounter or share, and finally, how can that help us lead to the theme? Let me know if you have any questions. I cannot wait to read your thoughts.